Now, to help us better understand the latest developments that are going on right now, we have with us Professor Shin Sang-hyup from Kyunghee University. Professor Shin, thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Now, trade talks between the U.S. and China are set to take place in just a few hours. But that report we just heard says there's not much hope of significant progress being made. Do you see it the same way?
I think so, yeah, because the last 2 months, during the May and June, USA and China had the 3 rounds of talks to find a solution for the trade war between two countries, but they failed. The reason why they cannot produce very the fruitful outcomes at the talks is this issue is not simple. This is very complicated. What I'm talking about is that, this issue, is not limited to only economic or trade issues. I think the USA and China, they are competing each other to get the hegemonic power in the region. That means we should consider political factors, economic factors, and even social factors. So I think if this is the given condition on this issue, definitely it will be very difficult for them to get the solution easily. So in this context, at this talk, it seems to be quite difficult for us to see the very successful outcomes at the negotiations between USA and China.
Trump himself, in an interview on Monday, said that he does not anticipate anything to come out of these rounds of talks. Now, if the president says that, then it must mean that the talks really are doomed to fail from the start. Do you think Trump will have ordered his officials to make it difficult and not really come back with anything?
Well, I want to talk about the statement made by the President Trump very recently. He emphasized that the currency value, Chinese currency value, he emphasized the Chinese government manipulating the value of the Chinese yuan in order to minimize the negative impact on the Chinese economy caused by the very high tariff rates the USA government has imposed on Chinese products. Well, this is the one fact we have to consider to understand USA government stance. As I already explained, China is right now become a one of the biggest economy. They want to the IT. They have the largest IT industries in the world. But the USA did not see those kind of changes in China. So definitely, in other words, there must be some severe competition between USA and China to get the hegemonic power. So considering the economic foundations of USA, which is much stronger than China, the USA does not seem to have any reasons to change their stance about this issue. And then when you look at the Chinese stance, definitely so far, Chinese government has taken retaliatory action measures against the USA's very protectionistic trade policies. So for a time being, so conditions would continue. And then when and who will change first? I think, as I already explained before, considering the economic foundations, definitely China will change first, I think. But we have to wait and see, because China is certainly one of the largest economies. So for a time being, until we see the change of Chinese stance on this issue, we have to wait.
So if you think that there's not going to be much to come out of these talks, then why meet now? Why have this meeting?
Yes, that's a good question. I think that, they should, they seem to recognize if the situations continue, both will get damages on their economy. They knew it very well, though. So they want to keep the channels of dialogue between two countries. But I want to talk about the recent change on the stance of both countries about the negotiation. Very recently, head of the negotiation, they became the vice minister level officials, right? This is I think a change made by both governments in order to prepare for more productive, higher level negotiations about this issue. What I mean is that, for the last 2 months, as I already explained, for the last May and June, there were 3 rounds of negotiations. They failed to produce very productive outcomes at these talks. So by appointing the vice level officials for this talk. They want to keep discussing about this issue, and they prepare for higher level official talks for this issue. This means that they certainly showed a very clear intention to maintain the communication channel between two countries. Without it, it seems to be more serious, and then both sides, by maintaining the communication channel, they want to they keep the possibility, even though it's not very big though, possibility for the solving this issue in the near future.
There are commentaries that are coming out that say that this China bashing by Trump is part of his administration's plan to win votes in the next midterm elections that are coming up in November, rather than trying to tackle any real trade issues that they have. Would you agree with this assessment?
Yes, I think so. I agree with this assessment, because midterm examination, which is scheduled to be held in November, I think it seems to be very important for President Trump and his administration. And then I think that his administration is using every means to make the very favorable circumstances for the midterm election. So in this context, as I already before, he has stepped up his pressure on Chinese government regarding the trade conflict. And by doing so, maybe he wants to get the support from his voters, you know. By reducing the trade deficit in the trade with China, the USA economy achieved about 4.1% economic growth last quarter, and then even the coming quarter, the expected economic growth rate of USA even reached to 5%. And if the economic growth reached to such a kind of high rates, then people will satisfy with, and then they will have some, they did not change their support for Mr. Trump, and this will be very important for him in the midterm election. So certainly in this context, he has stepped up the pressure against the Chinese government, particularly trade relations with China.
And very briefly, before we move on, Trump famously explained that trade wars are easy to win. Who would you say is winning right now?
We don't have to take his explanation as he does. I think it's not easy, though. But as I already explained, the economic foundations of USA seems to be stronger than Chinese ones. And in other words, China is an important trade partner for USA economy, but the USA seems to be a more important trade partner for the Chinese economy. So if situation continue for a while, certainly USA seems to take the more advantageous situation than China does. So I think the USA could win at this trade war against China, but who knows? But they have more possibility. But one thing which I want to underline is that if the situation goes on, it's not good for both sides, not USA economy, but the Chinese economy as well, too.
China, of course, is not the only adversary that the US is having disputes with. They're also having various economic and political disputes with Turkey. And that's ended up having very strong consequences there. The value of the Turkish currency, the lira, has fallen 40% since the beginning of the year, a staggering amount. Have you seen anything like this before?
Well, not very much, though. I mean, the Turkish lira actually was not stable currency. What I mean is that the Turkish economy has some structural problems, difficulties. I mean, in 2008, there was the global financial crisis. Since 2008, Turkish economy was in good shape. For example, in 2010, the Turkish economy recorded about 10% economic growth. But the point which I want to underline is that how they could achieve such a very high economic growth. I mean, that is because of the foreign direct investment. Since the 2008, at the time there was so PIGS, P-I-G-S. That means the many investment, which was made into the Portugal, Italy, and Spain. The investors withdrew their money from these countries, and they tried to find another destination of the investment. Turkey became the destination of one of the the destinations of those investments. So the Turkey could attract a huge amount of investment. Owing to such a huge amount of foreign direct investment, their economy could be in a good shape. But you know, one thing which is very important for us to discuss about foreign direct investment is that political stability seems to be the #1 factor affecting the foreign direct investment. But as we discussed before, the Turkish political stability was not very firm, so the Turkish economy was directly affected by the political stability. If the political stability was destroyed, then more people, more investors wanted to withdraw money from the Turkey. So the Turkish economy was not very stable. Under such a kind of situation, then the USA government imposed the very high tariffs on Turkish products such as the aluminum and then steel products. So on the top of the existing some risky the environment, the American decision, made the situation getting worse. So right now the Turkish economy seems to be facing the very serious situation, and to manage the economic stability, they decided to borrow the money, $34 billion loan from, $15 billion from Qatar, and then they decided to get the loan of $3.6 billion from China. And actually, to pay back the short-term foreign debt, it was reported that they should have to prepare about $200 billion. Considering all of this, definitely, Turkish economic situation seems to be very serious.
Yes, very serious indeed. There were also concerns that the lira crisis would have consequences that would affect South Korea and Asia in general as well. But although there was a dip in the stock market last week, they seem to have mostly recovered, and it's hard to notice the major effects right now for us, it seems. Is that the right view?
Yes or no? I mean, the Turkish situation certainly would give the negative impact on the economies of the rising, new emerging countries' economy. Certainly, let me tell you more details about the Korean economic situation. I mean, how much the effect we will get from the Turkish situation. We are quite lucky because, you know, Hyundai, SK, CJ, such a kind of Korean business conglomerate started the business in Turkey quite for a long time ago. But one thing, because as I already explained before, the lira was not stable currency. So in case of the big Korean companies, when they started the business, they have used the USA dollar as a way of payment. So because of the lira crisis this time, I think that they will get very limited the damages. But the one thing which I'm really concerned about is that the damages which Korean small and medium-sized companies could get, or Korean personals could get from the lira crisis this time, because they have used the lira as a way of payment, so they will be affected by the lira crisis in Turkey. One thing more is that, you know, in the stock market, according to the companies in Korea, we have about the 100 billion won stocks, bond in lira. That it will be directly affected by the lira crisis. But you know, considering the total size of the Korean stock market, 100 billion won, I think is not big money. So the damages which Korean economy will get from the lira crisis is very limited. But depending on the economic foundations, some Asian countries will, rising emerging countries will get more serious damages from the lira crisis.
Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you for coming in, Professor, and shedding some more light on some of the top issues today.
My pleasure.